Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Friday. Hey,
yes,
Tom.
It is Friday. Hey, Bob, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing very well. Friday, it's not afternoon, Friday morning. So end of the
Friday
week.
Morning. Yep.
Which is good. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is, I'm Tom. That's Bob. We already said that. Sorry. And
it's going to be one of those.
Yeah, I think so. Our daily broadcast, where we have a topic we discuss for the week, and then we try to provide you with that one thing, the one thing that'll hopefully help you. Maybe
Did you
today.
just shrink yourself?
I just adjusted my camera.
Okay. You just got small.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's all good.
I'm going to go back to this.
Yeah.
I got something going on in the lower corner, so I don't know.
Yeah, everyone's fixated on your lower right corner, Tom. You're right.
I'm sure they are. Anyhow, that we hope that this one thing will help you move forward. So if you'd like to participate, please feel free to add your comments about our conversation, and also feel free to add your one thing, because there are definitely people out there who would benefit from what is real for you, and it will help them take their next step along their own unique pathway to success. So this week we have been talking about growth. And there are lots of things that we discussed about growth, kind of what it is, how to manage it, how to consider it, and how you evaluate it. And so today we're going to try to wrap that all up. But before we do that, Bob's going to give you some information about what we have coming up in May inside the Ring of Renegades.
Do you want me to do it musically today, Tom?
Bob, have at it. It's Friday. Whatever you want.
Okay. All right. I'm going to try musical. You ready? Pop it up there. Let's see what we got. So if you'd like to join us this month, Tuesday, May 11th at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, we will be doing the Renegade Roundup. If you can't make it that time, you can come back on Thursday, May 27th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time for the Renegade Roundup. And every Wednesday in the middle of the week, a perfect time to take stock, we have the Ring of Renegades check-in and check-up, 1 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday. Ta-da.
Don't ever do that again. That was.
Tim has the best comment. That was an error judgment.
There was definitely not growth going on in our program today with that, whatever that was.
It was sort of a little, kind of an aria of sorts.
Yeah, I don't think anybody who's ever done an aria would say that would be defined as an aria. I think there used to be a Saturday Night Live skit with like the church lady.
Yeah.
That might have been a little more appropriate.
Okay.
At least appropriately titled.
Well, at least Tim said it was hilarious. And, you know, you got to do something to shake it up, because I get tired of reading the same words over and over.
Come on, you're the writer. Get creative.
All right, maybe next week I'll do it in voices.
Oh heavens! We might have to. Might be the time we have some growth in this program, and I do the weekly, the update of what events we have. Bob goes back to pressing the buttons.
No, that's not good. All right, so let's talk about growth, Tom.
Please.
The goal of our Friday program, as you know, because you do it with me every week, is to really recap and also highlight the things for each of us that jumped out at us about growth, or whatever the topic is. This week it was growth. So why don't you go first today for a change of pace?
Sure. Well, I think, the interesting thing for me about growth in our conversation was, again, I think my theme through the week was that it's not always just about revenue or about number of clients, is that there are a lot of ways to have growth. And there's a lot of things to look at and consider, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday, that really clients and revenue, we only have so much control over. That in reality, we are dependent on someone else making a decision if we're going to have growth in revenue or in the number of clients. We only have so much control of it. And I think that that's an important thing for us to remember. Not that that is not an important key indicator for your organization or for your business. Those things are important. Or if you have a team, how do you see your team continue to progress? And whatever that results are, whether it's, depending on you've created more widgets, you've helped more people, whatever that might look like. And I think that we just get so wrapped up in those two because they are so, everyone else is thinking about that. And it's interesting. Somebody even shared something, maybe it was on LinkedIn, where, this kind of, or we were having this conversation. It kind of goes against everything else everyone else talks about. Everyone talks about numbers in terms of dollars, bottom line. They don't always talk about what are all the other things that you really are not going to have that bottom line growth unless you have some growth in other areas, because you're just not going to be able to support what you're trying to accomplish. And so I think that this is the thing for me is that what are the other things that are critical and that you control to measure, to understand, and look at in terms of growth?
I'm going to add to that, and I'm going to do it while telling a little story. One of our Renegade Success Network members, Bourne, is celebrating the 7th anniversary of our business. And I would bet from talking to her that last year, because of the pandemic, was not her best year in sales. However, I would tell you that I got to talk to Jean a number of times. You talked to Jean a number of times because within our Renegade Success Network, we work with people all through whenever they need help with any obstacle or any concerns. And what I saw over the last year was a huge growth in Jean and her business. The numbers didn't dictate that last year for her completely, but as you look forward, and I think you'd agree, Tom, she is positioned. So to me, if we're only looking at those, key performance indicators, how much revenue did we bring in? How much profit did we have? How many employees did we hire? How many trips, in the case of a travel agent, how many trips did I book? Last year had to be an off year because there weren't that many trips that you could book. She does a lot of cruise business, and there weren't a whole lot of cruises last year for obvious reasons. But she grew a lot in terms of how she builds her business, how she finds people to work with, and how she presents herself. So here's a year that if you looked at her chart, it probably wasn't the highest in revenue, but I would argue it was probably one of the highest in her growth. That to me is what we've really got to get our hands on, even month to month or week to week. This week's been really crazy for me. I've had some personal stuff get in the way, but the biggest piece of growth for me was yesterday afternoon. I just said, you know what? It's a lost day. I am not in the right.
It's a different day.
Well, a lost day in terms of I'm not going to get back to work. It's not going to happen. I'm not there mentally. I've got way too many things to worry about. And I just found some things I could do that would help my business, but didn't require thought. Taking tax documents to a tax preparer, buying a device I need to replace. Things that don't require a lot of mind time. And for me, being able to recognize that and process it and do it effectively and not be upset about it today, that's huge growth for me, which opens the potential for here I am, a new day, and I'm ready to work.
Sure. I think that's part of it, is what happens after the growth. Growth is one thing, right? So we make this progress and we identify that we're in a different place than we were, and we consider that growth. So then I guess the next thing is what happens next? How do you best leverage this new knowledge, experience, or perspective as you move forward? Because growth just for growth's sake is good, or it is what it is what's real. And how are we going to then leverage it and move forward? So if you go back to Jean's example, is if she's able to leverage all of this growth that she's had in understanding her clients, understanding her message, better positioning herself in front of people, considering that there are other options than just some of the things she's focused on in the past, how do you carry that through? Right? Because growth is great, unless, well, it's always great. If you don't then take advantage of it moving forward and use it and position it for new growth and to identify what's next, not just say, hey, you know what, this was great. I had a lot of growth. I'm just going to keep doing this over and over and over and over and over again. You'll find that you'll start to lose the value of that growth. And so what's the next step? What's the next destination? Once you've had this growth, how do I take what's now real for me and figure out what's the next step? What's the next destination along my pathway so that I continue to move closer and closer to where I ultimately would like to be?
I'm going to disagree with you for a second, Tom. You said a couple minutes ago that growth is always great. I think too much growth too soon can be really troubling. One, it causes undue stress to operations and systems. But more importantly, what it can do is...
Numbers didn't dictate that last year.
What happened? You were trying to comment, weren't you?
I was, sorry.
Yeah, no, you have to hit the mute. I've done it. I've done it in my head a number of times. Growth is great until or unless you exceed your capacity. If I take on 100 clients and I can't manage those 100 people, my growth is very short term. It's going to go out the window and it's going to cause more problems. And we've seen that with people. They say, oh, well, I'm doing this and 88 people want me to do this. Well, how many can you work with? Maybe 50. Okay, you've got an instant problem. Or if you're building, bookshelves for people, and it takes you 5 hours per bookshelf, that means you can do 2 a day. You can only do 10 a week. If you book 15 a week or 20 a week, you are setting yourself up. You're going to have to tell people we're delayed, we can't get to you till next week, and it starts to cause problems. And I think that's another aspect of growth we didn't go into too much, but it's really having the growth be at the right pace to allow you to achieve what you're trying to do and still have great customer service, still create the right products and the best products and services so that you don't want to lose your reputation. How many businesses have you heard? I know of a restaurant where it's like, oh, they got really big. They opened 8 locations in 2 years and the food was horrible because they couldn't get chefs, they couldn't get wait staff, they didn't train the same way. So the first restaurant was great, but the other ones were derivative and it hurt their business.
Sure. Well, and again, I think that's the benefit of considering other ideas of growth. Not just more locations, more customers, more clients, more revenue. How do you be best prepared so when you do have that, the next steps, the next things that are going to happen, you're able to manage and you're able to make sure that you are providing the same service that you were providing when you were smaller.
So let's cut to the chase. What's your one thing today, Tom? That thing that's going to help us process this, make sense of it, move forward.
I think that to me, it's, I'm going to go back to that. You need to know where you want to be to figure out and measure your growth. And I think that once you've achieved that growth, the next key thing is what's the next place you want to be. Don't just spend, we can spend time worrying about growth or we can spend time celebrating our growth. And sometimes both of those don't get us to where we want to go. Yes, we need to worry. And yes, we need to celebrate. And we need to decide where are we going next? What is the next piece? So once I hit this one growth mark, what's the next one? And then how am I going to measure where I am on my process towards that? And I think that constant evaluation of where are you in the process is key, because that's going to help you identify what are the next steps to either help you reach this milestone of growth or to identify what is the new milestone of growth that you want to achieve.
It's hard to do that, though. It's hard when you're in the weeds dealing with your business to be able to step back far enough and be able to evaluate those things objectively. Because like we talked about, I think Wednesday, there's the sweat equity. If you put 40 hours into creating this really great proposal, to the person who reads it in 5 minutes and says no, you're like, but I spent 40 hours on it. how valuable is that? Hard to say. But I think that's one of the things I find when I talk to someone outside of me and outside of my business. That's when I start to get the insights. That's when I can evaluate things that just pass me by. That, I've done the same thing 5 times, and a friend will say, wait a second, you've been bringing that up a lot lately. Is that something new? It's like, oh yeah, I was just doing. I wasn't thinking. And I think that what I would say to people is you have to figure out some sort of way to evaluate things, and you've got to step back. Whether it's you're going to take a long drive on a Friday morning once a month and really sit in the woods and think about it really hard for an hour and a half and write notes, or you're going to go play golf, or you're going to, have a friend over and whiteboard where you are. And I've seen a couple of people where they share with each other the business progress over the month, and they have 2 sides of whiteboard, and they have some metrics that they write down for each. And
Right.
they'll each look at the other and be like, oh, wow, that's really great. And they'll help each other that way. Or, I've also been coached. You're kind enough to coach me about my business. And there are times when you see things about my business that I just can't find on my own. So I think when we talk about growth, I love your idea of evaluating it, but I also think we need to be realistic that to evaluate growth is really difficult because it's very easy to look at numbers.
Sure. Well, I think you have to have an understanding of what are you measuring outside of numbers, and how, and
why
progress. Well, right, and why? Why is that important? And I think finding what are those other key things that are important that you solely control, that you have an opportunity to influence and impact and make a difference with. Because at some point, once it's out of your control, you can't really, you're stuck. You just are at the whim of what somebody else decides to do.
And those things could change, right?
Always.
From month to month, week to week, year to year. 1 year it might be I'm focused on operations. I want to have a really efficient operation. The next year it might be I'm focused on this new product or service. 6 months later it might be I want to hire better.
Right.
All those are key markers of growth. Effectively hiring, especially in this economy, could be a huge driver of growth, as so many companies I talk to are like, I can't find good employees. There's no one out there in the pool. So when someone leaves, it really does curtail their growth a lot.
Well, I wonder and that's a whole nother topic about hiring, because there's not only hiring, there's onboarding. And are you clear on what you're hiring for?
Yes.
About a whole, one of the things I talked about with the client with growth was how do you put together a process that always works? And sometimes if you're in an organization where you seem like you're constantly hiring, how do you have that ongoing process where you're always looking? You're not, even though, okay, now I've got my full team, who else is out there? So that at least I'm aware, because I know that the turnover rate is X. And, if this is a process of either how am I constantly finding new people, or what do I need to do differently so people don't leave? And how does that impact where we're at? And so I think that, you could take almost any topic you have or any thing that you deal with in your daily work and determine, like, how do I measure the growth that I have in that? It could be how do I evaluate my employees? How do I market my efforts? How do I do my networking? All of those things are things that you have some control over, and you can then figure out how to measure what's the next step to help you obtain the growth that you'd like.
I like it. Tom, you want to ride the ship off into the sunset on Friday?
I suppose. Well, thank you for joining us today and this week for our conversation about growth. If you are struggling with some of that or trying to figure out, what are those things that you want to measure and how do you measure them? And how can I measure, how you need someone to help you evaluate where are you at? We'll be able to provide, Bob will talk about that a little bit in a minute, of a way that you can do that to make sure that when you're looking back on August 1st of how did the next 3 months go, you can see the growth that you've had and then determine how you will leverage that growth to move forward. So if you've enjoyed this conversation, we hope you will join us inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. It is a growing group and a community of people who are trying to help one another take their next step. find their growth opportunities and the ways to leverage that as they move forward along their own unique pathway to success. So we hope that we will see you inside of that. If you haven't joined, join us just go to Facebook, search for Ring of Renegades, and you can become a part of the growing group. You just have to ask to join and tell us why you're a renegade. So we will see you inside of that group, or we will see you on Monday, 8 a.m. for our next edition of today's Antidote. Now, Bob, do you want to tell them a little bit about our Finding Your Renegade Way?
I'm not going to sing it, though.
Please don't sing it. Go ahead.
We're in agreement. All right. So, folks, you may be saying, what is this Find Your Renegade Way in 90 Days program? It's real simple. We've put together a way for you to spend 90 days focused on your business in new ways. You'll have some coaching, you'll have some accountability, you'll have some focusing, and you'll also have some goal setting and a community to work with. This is often what we find gets in the way of success in business. We get stuck in mired in our own problems, and we can't move forward. So with the Find Your Way in Renegade Way in 90 Days program, we're trying to overcome those challenges. We're going to tackle individual challenges, whatever it is. Maybe you're struggling to figure out where to look for new clients or customers. Maybe you're struggling with hiring. Maybe you're struggling with your marketing message or your website, or how to manage your personal life and your professional life. These are all perfect topics that we can help you manage in 90 days. So look for information in our Facebook Ring and Renegades group on the Find Your Way in 90 Days program. It is going to be amazing. Can't wait to see you there.